my whole spark of this whole series was like crime scene cleaner. I was like, I love kind of slicing into the mystery genre in a way that is not like cop, PI. I have FBI agents, but they tend to be like psychologists.
Hmm.
And like my other series was a linguist. And so like I really like those kind of slices into it, like step sideways into it. And one of the reasons is because they don't have to follow any rules.
Yeah.
Cops have to like put on gloves, they have to get warrants and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I kind of really enjoy writing in this space where it's like they're working alongside cops, but they don't necessarily need to follow all the rules.
This is Story to Count with Jen Jumba. In conversations with writers, something magical happens. And as readers, we begin to see them as human beings and not just the name on the spine of a book. My hope is through these conversations, you learn about their craft and them as a person, you'll become like me. Fiercely loyal, want to read their current book, entire backlist, any future book, or any book they blurb. And when you see their name, you'll want to support them, not only as incredible storytellers, but the thoughtful individuals you have come to know. So I'm super excited today because my guest is Brianna Labuskes. She is a USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling writer, best known for her Dr. Gretchen White series and Reza Susanto series. Brianna loves reading and writing in two of her favorite genres, psychological thrillers and historical fiction. She got her start in romance with a small publisher and still adores swoon-worthy meet-cutes. Agreed. You can find that strong sense of relationship building in all of her work. Brianna has published more than a dozen novels in her career and isn't slowing down anytime soon. Thank goodness. She spent the first decade plus of her career in DC journalism and thus knows far too much about the Ways and Means Committee, as well as the best way to avoid traffic on the Beltway. And you could pocket that and sell that. She now lives in Pennsylvania with her pup, Jinx. So I'm so glad you're here today to talk about your new book, Clean Slate.
Thank you so much for having me. That was such a lovely introduction.
Well, I'm just the secrets of Beltway traffic.
You know, I'm not sure I actually cracked it. More like leaving on Saturday morning instead of Friday night where you'll sit for 4 hours.
Yeah, might as well sit and enjoy something rather than sit in your car.
Exactly.
So can you introduce us to this amazing book, Clean Slate? This is, we talked a little bit before, this is the start. This is number one. Well, will be number one bestseller, but number one in a series. Can you tell us who Olive Hunt is?
Yeah. So Olive Hunt is a crime scene cleaner, and she kind of doesn't want to really get involved in the police work. She keeps her head down. She's kind of had a little bit of a traumatic past. Her mother has OCD, contagion OCD, which is really focused on germs and diseases and things like that. And she kind of taught Olive how to meticulously clean. And so when Olive essentially became an orphan when her mom killed her father, she kind of had this skill in her back pocket of cleaning. And so she went into crime scene cleaning. And that you kind of get deeper into her reasoning on that too. But she's at this crime scene and she uncovers a clue through her meticulous cleaning that the police missed. And she doesn't think a ton of it. She kind of turns it in and like moves on with her life. And then at one of her next crime scenes, she finds a clue like in a similarly hidden fashion, and she realizes it's a serial killer. And then so she kind of it has ties to light ties to a community center that she grew up in. Her best friend's dad runs it. Her and her best friend used it as like an escape from her, household when she was growing up. And so all of that kind of tangles together, and they solve the crime.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So we'll talk a little bit about the Peachtree Community Center and just
Yeah.
what an important role that it plays in communities for people like Olive, for people that have been going there for years. You talk a little bit about why you chose to incorporate that as an important element. I would almost say it's a character in your book.
Yeah, that's a really good way. Yeah. I was in healthcare journalism for the last 5 years of my journalism careers in healthcare journalism. And I love, like, we did studies on like these community centers all the time and the way that they like reduce crime, the way that they reduce health risks. Like, they just help the community so much. And when I was crafting this book, I knew I wanted community to be a major theme throughout this entire series. And you see it come back in the like echoes of it come back in the second book as well. But in the first one, it's building the community out. And so you see that in the community center, but you also see it in ripples. So like I have a lot more characters that kind of come in and out of the scenes where it really makes Olive feel like she has a lot of support system, even if they're not like best friends. She knows them. She knows the motel manager and she knows the hotel manager. It kind of makes Atlanta feel like a small town. And then like within that is the community center where it really was her escape from this traumatic kind of childhood. And I just wanted to highlight that, like on the macro and the micro, like how it rippled throughout the entire book. And also just be able to highlight the health benefits of a community center on a neighborhood that I had learned so much about when I was doing healthcare journal.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fascinating. I mean, as a librarian, we think of ourselves as,
Yeah.
community center adjacent, giving people a place to be themselves, to be seen, to be heard. Sometimes it's helping with the basics. We partner with a food bank for after school meals during the summer when kids aren't typically in school. So understanding the value of a place like a community center and to be that foundation that doesn't move, that constant in a young person's life, I think is incredibly cool. And I'm glad that you chose to highlight it. And specifically, her best friend is Leah. Leah
Hmm.
is Leah's great. I mean, the relationship that these two friends have is fantastic. The dialogue, the banter that goes back and forth, that they say things, but they're kidding. But it's just like how I talk to some of my friends, which was quite funny as I was reading it. But her father volunteers at
Hmm.
this Peachtree Community Center. So she has known Leah almost her whole life, and she's known Leah's father her whole life. So it is a great constant to, I guess, go against or to help her through what is an incredibly traumatic childhood. And most people learn how to meticulously clean. I mean, I grew up, my grandmother, same way, meticulous.
Yeah.
My mom, meticulous, not probably to the point where I would have looked for a clue that Olive did in that first crime scene, but she has the skills of cleaning and she chooses, there's many different ways you can clean, but she chooses to be a crime scene cleaner.
Yeah. I think because she is so worried, so much of her motivation comes from being scared that she's going to turn into her mom in like a more extreme way than like a lot of women worry about that, right? Not that we don't, I love my mom,
Right.
but
Me too.
it's a common, fear. But she worries that she's going to develop contagion OCD because it can be late onset. And she has been trained this way to think this way. And she's so worried that she is able to see the dirt and that she's worried that it like is going to, trigger something within her. And so it's almost like someone who is like scared of heights being like a window washer on a skyscraper. She's just like, I need to confront my fear every single day and I need to overcome it. And I need to make sure that I am. There's a scene where she describes it. She's like, her mother wouldn't be able to exist in the rooms that Olive walks into every single day because there is blood. There is actual disgusting things. I won't name them all. We all know what they
Yeah.
are.
Right.
Everything that comes with a crime scene. So she confronts her fear every single day. And that to her, that is kind of continuously every day she can wake up and be like, okay, it's okay. I dealt with like, guts today and I walked away fine. And so that's kind of where her motivation comes from. And I think subconsciously she is driven by this crime in her past. Like she did have crime in her past. And though she kind of says, I don't want to be involved in the investigation. Like she's like, I'm not no Nancy Drew or anything like that. But she gets into it pretty easy. She lets herself be pulled into it. So I think there's just this natural desire to be in that community. And also she then like learns how to deal with police and all sorts of things like that. So I think it kind of feels a little off at first, but she has like all these rationalizations for it that were actually really fun to come up with and be like, why would this person decide to be crime scene cleaner because she has all those skills and she could do it, but like, would she actually? And so, yeah, that was fun to ration through.
When you're creating the character, you decide you're going to make her a crime scene cleaner first, and then you go back and create the backstory versus, okay, she has this traumatic thing. What would she end up doing with her life? Okay,
Yeah,
very
so
cool.
my whole spark of this whole series was like crime scene cleaner. I was like, I love kind of slicing into the mystery genre in a way that is not like cop, PI. I have FBI agents, but they tend to be like psychologists. And like my other series was a linguist. And so, like, I really like those kind of slices into it, like step sideways into it. And one of the reasons is because they don't have to follow any rules. Like cops have to like put on gloves, they have to get warrants and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I kind of really enjoy writing in this space where it's like they're working alongside cops, but they don't necessarily need to follow all the rules. I could have her be like, go talk to anyone I want her to talk to.
Yeah, I think she's terrific. I mean, first of all, to have the awareness of what happened to her mom, because you're in her backstory. Like, she's fine. It wasn't until she turned 7 that her mom kind of had that tipping point where this contamination, OCD, and this feverish need to clean everything, including her as a child, really manifested. So her going in, being aware and kind of watching to make sure she's on track, I think is great. The other thing, she's pretty young. She's 29, but she's been running this business for a while and it's her own business. So just the sense of agency that she has to be a small business owner
Yeah.
is not easy. And yet she does it
No.
masterfully.
She is like so much more confident than she wants to give herself credit for. I think in her, like for me at least, I mean, obviously I created her, but she kind of views herself as like falling into everything. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like, okay, what do I need to do next? Well, I'm going to get a job at a motel and I'm like the best cleaner there. And then there's a crime scene. So, like, that kind of seems interesting. So I'll try this and this and this. And then she just kind of like, she always feels like she's in survival mode. And I will say, like, I think in the book 1, she's still in survival mode. I think book 2, so this is a series. It's the second book is turned into the publisher. The second book, she starts kind of, I think the first book is impetus to her realizing that she can kind of get out of that survival mode. She has been in fight or flight. She's been in flight for so long. Like her traumatic response has been flight. And I feel like she lives her life that way. And I mean, she's very like cool, chill. She like hangs with people and makes friends and stuff. But like her engine is set on flight for like 10 years. And so like she doesn't have an option not to succeed. She kind of views it as like I need to succeed for Nana, her grandmother. She lives with her grandmother. I need to succeed for myself. I need to succeed for Leah, and just like goes. Like she doesn't think enough. And then the second book is really kind of reckoning like if I can take a breath, like what would I actually want to do? What would I actually be as a person when I can take a breath? So they're very much in conversation with each other, the 2 books. Not to like tease out a book that's coming out like before the next one I'm talking about, but I view them as conversations.
I think she's a great character, and you say that she kind of falls into things, but I mean, isn't there that whole the harder you work, the luckier you get?
Yes.
That paired with her openness and her curiosity to learn things. So you have that. I mean, there's some people that are like, nope, this is what I do and only what I do and can't see. But she's kind of a bit of a free spirit in the sense that she's open to new ideas, new things,
You're
and
absolutely right.
kind of stumbling in and realizing, wait a second, I'm kind of good at this, you know?
I think that curiosity is like one of her driving personality traits of just, and I think she's a little bit of like an unfulfilled talent of like being smart and like having those detective type skills. And, again, she's just so worried about paying bills and stuff like that she hasn't really tapped into that. And so the first time she gets to really tap into that, she's like, let me go solve a serial killer murder.
Yeah, and doesn't think twice about putting herself in certain situations, we'll say,
Yeah.
throughout the book.
Yeah.
But she's also a thoughtful young woman. She's very thoughtful. Before she goes into any scene, she talks about, I did my best to always give them some recognition before I ever stepped foot into the space where they died.
That was one of the first things I came up with her because it has the hint of categorization. It has the hint of like a compulsion that she has to do. And so, because she has to say their name, how they died, the cause of their death, and then like the specifics and then their age. And that's just kind of as their dignity. And one of the themes I just really wanted to explore because it is a crime scene cleaner and there are all these options and avenues to explore with that profession because they see death so much. They see people at their saddest because they just lost a loved one and they have to deal with that. And I wanted to have at least a little bit of a conversation in the book about dignity and death and how we deal with that in our society, really, and just in general. Like, she has to clean up. Your body does gross things when you die. There's just no other way to put it. Like, especially if you die like a violent death. And so she has to go and she's that person and she needs to have some care. And so that kind of informs the rest of her life as well as a character.
But I like that. I mean, yes, she's seeing family members or loved ones when somebody was no longer with us, but that sense of dignity that she gives them. And then she talks in there at one point about how she's seen death or grief every which way. Some people are very angry. Some people break down. Some people just stop altogether.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was an interesting thing that you pursued in this is that you bring up the theme of death in the book, but how we all handle it differently and how we all
I've always
handle
been really
violence differently.
I've been really fascinated by that topic ever since I started studying like body language
Mm,
and people will take videos of people recently like to see if they like were actually guilty or not guilty, like
yes.
moms who give those videos of like to the kidnapper
Well,
and say like bring back my child or whatever. And I think studying that and having people break down every emotion, you're like, well, people react differently. Like some people are not always going to feel, they're not going to cry. And I do feel like, women kind of get, you can't react too much if you're a woman. You can't react too little or you're a sociopath. And it's like, you're just so policed in the way that you have expressions and like how that comes out in your worst moment. Someone's sitting there looking at you trying to decide if you killed your child in your worst moment of your life because you cried too much or you didn't cry enough. And like that idea has always really fascinated me. So I kind of like wanted to work that in a little bit.
yeah, I mean, well, the fact that your other series involves from a psychology standpoint with the FBI. I mean, the human behavior, what we do is fascinating. What we do to one another is
Yes,
fascinating and depraved at the same time. And also there's very good that we do as human beings with one another and to one another. But I'm always fascinated to understand why people do what they do.
it drives my books. That is the reason I write thrillers is literally I always want to explore why we're doing what we're doing. I have like a sociopath series, Dr. Gretchen White, and it's a 3-book series. And she's a sociopath. And I cannot tell you how fun it was to write from her perspective because she got to observe people in a really stark way. So I got to be like, well, why are they doing that? And then like she kind of works through it through her theoretical academic mind instead of like another character who might observe human behavior more connected to how they are and what they're experiencing and stuff. So that distance let me be like, people are weird and interesting and like why we do things is interesting. So yeah, that's kind of what that's why I write thrillers in general. You just like summed it up perfectly.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you write thrillers because it's something that I really enjoy reading because like you, I'm fascinated by people and I think books are the things in terms of works of art and artistry that we can actually get a chance to see inside. You don't really quite see that same thing play out in other storytelling forms.
100%.
Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating. The other thing that came up in terms of your book is class.
Mm.
The have and the have-nots and wealth because Anthony, who's Leah's father, Anthony runs this volunteers at the Peachtree Community Center, has another job, and his best friend growing up was Cutter.
Mm-hmm.
got along great. They, of course, they're boys, and so they get into the typical coming of age boy trouble stories and doing things, but then their paths really kind of diverge. Do you want to talk a little bit about which way Cutter went?
Yes. So Clutter married the daughter of a billionaire into a really rich family, and it kind of created incredible distance between them that probably would have existed eventually anyways as they matured into adulthood. But so I love writing about this theme in general, the two sides of the justice system. I find it frustrating as a human being living in the real world and cathartic to write about through a lot of my thrillers. Girls of Glass, which was my second thriller, really focuses on this as well. Like the wealth and the privilege in the justice system, like how these interact is just fascinating to me. And so I wrote the first scene in this motel. I had the idea of the hotel manager, and I really liked just kind of like seedy
Ronnie?
character. Yeah. And I liked the way he reacted with Olive, and you could tell she has like this kind of like cool persona. She can just like go in anywhere and like interact with anyone. And so I'm giving you a little bit like how I build a scene here, but like I really wanted to showcase. Okay. I really wanted to showcase that aspect of her personality. I wanted it to make, again, like I wanted to make Atlanta feel small and to make it feel like she could go. I don't know if do you read Janet Ivanovich,
Mhm.
Stephanie Plum series?
Yes.
That's something I love about her series, where Stephanie Plum, she's set in Trenton, and it feels like everywhere she goes, she kind of knows people, or she's like, you were my, high school sister's best friend, or like whatever. And like Trenton feels really small to her. And I kind of love that vibe. And I was kind of trying to like make it happen with Olive as well. And so anyways, that's where I started. And then I was like, okay, so the motel's pretty seedy. And then I was like, where do I put my second victim? And I was like, the exact opposite. And we want to show how the reaction to someone being found at the seedy motel versus someone being found at this upscale boutique where they put fresh flowers in every room every morning. And I was like, this is so perfect to be able to showcase, because it is a serial killer. And a lot of serial killers, when you're writing them, you have to kind of have their motives. Their MO kind of has to be the same. So they can pick victims of different socioeconomic statuses, but that's going to be more rare. And I was able to do it in this I was able to do it in this case because of the motivation is, I won't give too much
No
away.
spoilers.
Because the particular motivation of this serial killer, I was like, I can actually sit here and be like, this serial killer killed two different people the exact same way by the exact same person, and we see the justice system react incredibly differently to them because of their socioeconomic status. And I was able to then ripple that out. And I love having themes that just like go throughout the whole book. I mean, I know that's how themes work, but you just pull them through the whole book, and then it ties into the actual serial killer and like the motives of everybody involved over there. And that's just something like, again, I say like as a frustrated person who reads news about our justice system, to be able to write into a book a little bit more justice.
Right. Which is probably why we read a lot of them, because we don't
Honestly,
see enough of it in the real world. So we find that same sense of justice in your books.
yeah. That's why I always, some people have asked me like, why did you kill this certain character XYZ? And I was like, they crossed one of my lines and they had to die. I don't believe in the death penalty in real life.
Yeah, what your lines were before we started talking. So,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. I mean, because at one point there's a line in the book where Cutter viewed wealth as a number in his bank account, and Anthony viewed it as the number of lives he's helped.
Hmm.
So that's terrific. And then there's a line about with endless amounts of money, he could control the narrative. And so it speaks to
Mhm.
your point of endless amounts of money, things can go away versus if you don't have that. And then you
Yeah.
have Olive, who will talk to anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Ronnie at this rent by the hour type of hotel or motel versus the uppity boutique hotel where she has to come in the back so that none of the guests see that she's coming in or see her van parked. So yeah, very different ways that things are approached. And it's the same thing,
Yeah,
and why they aren't approached in the same way. Yes, frustrating.
super. And I feel like, we are living in the tech boom era where all these tech people are just making obscene amounts of wealth and they don't even know what to do. They don't even know what to do with the amount of
So I'm
wealth
like,
they
"Hey,
have. And
hello, help."
yeah, and then and then you interact with people who have so much less money in their bank account, fewer stocks, and they don't know maybe where their next rent payment is coming to. And they would pay for lunch for someone sooner than like the billionaire guy
Mhm.
who could feed the entire country. I think if we lose touch with that, I don't think we are. I think there's tons of good people. I think there's like so many great people out there. And I think most people are good. I
I
do.
agree.
I'm kind of one of those optimists, I guess. Yeah. I think most people are good. I think most people are just trying to live their lives. But I think social media and, media in general, and we're seeing everybody's glossy lives, and we like are lots of envy and lots of stuff like that, where it's like I one of my brother-in-law was a Teach for America, which is when like they graduate
Yes.
and they go and teach in like underprivileged high schools. But it was such a good program, and he got a letter like a couple of years ago from like one of his fifth graders, and was like, "You changed my life." Like I was headed in a really bad direction. I would have gone off the rails and ended up in prison probably. And he said that, his words. And he was like, but instead I like got it together, have this like successful life and like family and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, one person can change someone's life, and like
Mhm.
to recognize the humanity in each other. And I think that's where community, like that was the importance of writing the community center to bring it back.
That's
Is just
you stole, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, which stresses the importance of community, because
yeah,
people who are part of the same community want to see members of their community do well and do
yes,
okay. And there, to the point where there's a quote in there about being part of the community, that you can accept help from the community, but you also have to be able to give it when needed, type of thing. And I just think it's so true that you see that in a lot of places, the really tight communities and how they're all there and support one another. And I don't know if it's because of a ridiculous amount of wealth where you don't live in a typical neighborhood where you're out and about, and you probably don't do your own grocery shopping to run into people, or so there's this sense of being removed, or I don't want to say isolated, but from that same sense. And Olive's a great character. I mean, there's this sense of reverence before she enters a scene to clean. I didn't mean to rhyme. But at the same time, there's that flippant, and maybe it's for people who work in tough professions, that gallows humor that really kinda helps, because her ringtone when it's a job for work is "Sympathy for the Devil," which is terrific, and she wears these funny T-shirt tanks with
yeah.
puns on them, and one, this is not this is not a hammer, and it's a picture of another instrument, and I'm thinking, "Yeah, very Marguerite of you," right? But very, very fun, because I have a bunch of those kinds of T-shirts, and they're some of my favorite
I
things.
I've had multiple people mention the punny tanks to me, and
Uh-huh.
I'm so happy because I literally researched every one of them. I was like, what could be puns? And it has to be like a visual element, and it can't be too long, just because of writing it in a sentence can kind of, writing a pun too long will throw you off. So it took like some thought, and I'm so glad people like it. Because I was like, is this weird? But I just really, she's so. She's one of my favorite characters I've ever written, and like she was just like so fun to write, and like doing she has playlists from like Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears, and that's how she uses them to
Avril
clean.
Lavigne, I think, was my favorite playlist that she had queued up, and she started with Skater Boy, and I was like, "As we do.
As we do.
As we do."
And then, like, she has, like, moments where she's like, "Okay, this is gonna call for some Whitney." And, like, I think she just has this big personality, like, people love her, like, just the way she gives love, receives love, and then So something I've always seen online, because I struggle to do this myself, is like people want to help you. Like you, you don't want to have friends who are always asking you for favors and you never ask them for favors. Because that creates just like they want to do favors for you because that strengthens the bond both ways.
Right.
And so asking for help, like I'm glad I get to put that into my community because I think asking for help and being able to receive help is like a really important part of building community. It's not just always showing up to cut someone's lawn. It's also being like, "Hey, I have a tree in my yard. Can you come help me remove it?" Like it has to be give and take both ways. That's how we do build community.
Right.
And so I think she struggles a little bit with the second part of receiving and not just like showing up to help, but I think that's part of her growth. That's her part of her narrative arc of growth.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true for most of us that we're willing to give help. It is incredibly hard for some of us to ask for help, and it's just as hard to receive that help some days. Can remember growing up, certain things I was taught. My mom will probably listen to this, but when somebody would say, "Hey, we'd love for you to come over for dinner," that I was always taught to never say, "What can I bring?" because that
Mm.
person will likely say, "Nothing, just bring yourself." But I was always
Mm.
taught to say, "Sounds great, but can I bring dessert?" And then that person
Mm.
has an easier time saying, "Oh, that sounds great."
That's so smart. Yeah.
Like that, flipping the narrative, or when friends are going through tough stuff, it's like, "Hey, look, I'm in the middle of the grocery store. I'm getting groceries. What can I pick up for you?" So,
Yeah.
because I'm already here, it's
Love
not like
that.
I made a special trip for you, although I would, but somehow it's easier for that person to receive.
That is I love that. Yeah.
But I love the character Olive. I love the
Thank you.
character Leah. Like, they're just 2 amazing friends, and we talked a little bit before, just their banter and their dialogue back and forth is terrific.
I love writing friends. Like Gretchen, like sorry, not to keep bringing up my Gretchen series, but Gretchen also has a kind of a foil, and Lauren Marconi is her kind of police liaison. And that was so much fun to write that I'm like, I'm doing it again. And obviously, they're not at all similar because Gretchen's a sociopath. So that has that dynamic, and Marconi's pretty tough. And Leah and Olive just like love each other so much. And it's like that friendship of like,
Well, their moms had them at the same time, right? Didn't their moms have, so they basically grew up from birth.
yeah,
So
that's how my mom met her best friend, is in labor with my sister. So they had the older ones. And then they met like on the maternity ward or whatever. And then 18 months later, my mom calls her and she's like, "Hey, I have news." And Marie was like, "I have news too." And then they had me and her son are like a week apart.
no way. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I kind of borrowed that from my mom. And so I've always loved that. And then I grew up in a small town. So I have had friends that I've known since kindergarten. Like I'm 39. I have friends who I've known since kindergarten. And I love female friendships when they're done really, like when they're actually presented well. Cause I sometimes think, and I've done it too because of just like conflict and the way the story needs to play out and all sorts of things. But like, I hate when like women friendships are portrayed really superficially or cattily or like anything like that. I'm like, that's not what my friends are like. We love each
No.
other all like we are. I mean, kind of like Leah and Olive. Like I have similar friendships with like my friends, and I just kind of wanted to represent that. And I think people really connect to it. It's like fun to watch. It's fun to see. And again, for Olive to have this like support system outside her house so that she could be kind of there's the logistical question of how does she become the person she is when she had such a traumatic childhood, and the answer is Anthony and Leah. And so she had a father figure, she has Leah as a sister, and she spent most of her time with them, and like that's how she is the person that she is. And she does not blame her mother, like this is a
Mm-mm.
mental illness, and she understands it. Like her mother is not trying to abuse her. Like that I've tried to make that very clear. Yeah, she is trying to save her. Like she's trying to make sure Olive does not get germs in her. And so it's all done through that impetus. Like she's not like you are dirty. She's like we need to make sure you don't get sick.
Right.
And so, like, all of that is part of the complicated relationship with the mother because, like, she's like, I don't hate her. Like, she's not like, she's not a traditional psychopath, like,
Mm-mm.
tormenting character. She just, like, has the disorder that she can't control. So,
Yeah. She even
it's just
mentions,
like,
yeah. No, she even mentions at one point the word compulsion. Neurotypical people thought of compulsions as wants or desires. But those of us who had seen them firsthand knew they could be all consuming in a way those neutered words didn't cover. And then she goes to visit her mom at one point because her mom's in this psychiatric hospital facility and her mom is like, doesn't really react. And so Olive is trying to say, like, can you dial down the medicine a little bit so that she can kind of live and not just exist? And how hard that must be for her to see her mom in that capacity.
I almost went to school for psychology. I took a bunch of classes, like college level classes. And did you say you did too?
No, I
At
was
least
like, don't look. I was like, don't look.
that's so funny. I realized I had to take statistics along with it, and I was like, "No, thank you. I'm gonna do writing." But I read this book. It was about a woman who was an alcoholic but also had manic personality disorder or something like that. And she talked about how they put her on lithium and how it like dulled her personality so much. And I have ever since then heard time and time and time and time and time again people with disorders like OCD, like BPD, like, manic personality disorder, anything like that. And they just struggle to take medicine and not feel like a zombie, like, of themselves, and so they don't feel like themselves again, and I have so much empathy and compassion for that because I am like, they don't want to have their brain on fire. Actually, I think that's what it was called. It was called Brain on
What
Fire.
is brain on fire? Yeah. I know the book you're talking about. I can tell you
Yeah.
exactly what the cover looks like. Yeah.
Brain on Fire. That was such a, like, formative book in my, like, I don't know, it just stuck with me, and the way that she talked about being on medicine, so she had, like, manic episodes and depressive episodes. The way she talked about, like, evening it out, it felt like no longer like she was living, and of course, when you're writing thrillers, everything becomes the extreme, right? Like, so you make it into, like, she probably what they're trying to figure out, and so she has comorbidities along with her OCD, which is common. And so they're trying to like treat all these things and they're just like not getting it right. And she's not like not like a nice. I also kind of just like made her like not a nice person, not because of her mental disorder, just because like I don't know, she is a little sharp sometimes. And I think the best parts of Olive are sharper in her mom. And the best parts of Olive kind of got sanded down by Anthony and Leah. And so, anyways, that's all to say, it's very hard. I think I always wanted to explore that idea of, like, medication and how hard it is to hit right for people
Yes.
who have stuff like that, where it's like, I no longer care about living. I no longer care, like,
About the
if
things that bring me joy.
no, and, like or, like, anybody else. Like, I don't care. Like, it kind of for some people can just turn off, like, a lot of the things that make life living, but then if they don't take their medication, then they have different issues, and so I think that's I just have so much compassion for that. Like, I don't know what the answer is, obviously. I'm not a, you know, doctor, but, I did wanna kind of explore it a little bit,
Yeah,
which is
you
what I do in
explore a
fiction.
lot of a lot of themes in this book, which I think is fantastic. And thinking too, in your introduction, we talked about how you were known for your swoon-worthy meet cutes. Can we? And they still show up in your books. Can we talk a little bit about Sully?
I was gonna say, Sully is my first love interest on a page in my thrillers, and I have no idea why. I didn't go in thinking I'm gonna give her a love interest. I did go in thinking it was gonna be like a little bit lighter. So I've never done romance in my thrillers before because I've never really liked like them finding a dead body and then them like going to on a dinner date. Like I didn't like that. Feels a little awkward to me, right? Like they're like I don't know. And so my thrillers tend to be compressed time. So like usually 3 or 4 days and then it's like body drop, mystery solved. So I've never really
Only life
explored
was that easy.
I know, I know. I don't know if you follow any true I'm not a huge true crime person, but sometimes I'll get, like, interested in, like, a case or whatever, and it was, like, 3 years later, like, that is not my timelines ever
No,
in my
this happens over a short period of time, and you also have flashbacks to the past that help
yes, which I will
understand the
do.
yeah.
I'll do that for sure, but, like, the actual, like, solving of the crime is usually pretty compressed, and so since I kind of went in knowing this was gonna be a series, I think I had a little more freedom, and the fact that it is a little lighter, like, she has punny T-shirts, and she has, pop music, and she banters, and, like, I was like, "I think this is the right vibe if I ever wanted to do a romance, it would be
Mhm.
okay." Like, it wouldn't feel like I read a book one time where they found his boss massacred, his entire family massacred, and then they, like, went and took a shower together. And I was like, "Oh, no shade to the author. It didn't work for me." I was like, "I don't think that's what happened." And so, but this one I was kind of like, she's kind of viewing for a lot of it like it's a game. And so, like, that's her mentality. So she's kind of like, "Ooh, and this swoony." So he's a detective and he is working. I came up with Donovan Mitchell first because I loved the idea of being in the South and having a former football player and, like, he's just, like, moves through life, like,
It's
I
also
don't
the
know.
name of the Cleveland Cavalier basketball player here in town.
That that's crazy.
It is crazy.
But I was just like, he's so I love that trope that, like, the everyone in the like, loves him because he's a quarterback and, like, he's, like, I don't know, he has, like, a gleaming smile and, like,
Yes,
I don't
and the
I
floppy
love
hair.
that. Yeah, and then I wanted to have his contrast, right? Because so much
Yes,
about writing is contrast. And then I had Sully, and, sometimes you just have characters meet on the page and they just, like, spark, and you're like, "Ooh," and sometimes previously, if they spark, I'm like, okay, they're going to be like mentors or best friends or like whatever. And I was like, you know what? This could work. This could work. So they have a little romance
yes,
that is, yeah, it's like kind of,
truly.
it's a amuse bouche of a romance, I feel, in
Yeah,
the first book.
yeah, no, it's really great because she's not like a girly girl,
No,
and
yeah.
she says throughout the book, like, "I will not date a cop, I will not date a cop." Try trying to tell herself, like, "Yeah, no, I have no feelings," but yet they have interesting rapport and phone conversations and things that they say. I mean, at one point, they're on her back porch because serial killer delivers flowers to thank her for finding the clues, and, like, she makes him pinky swear, and I was like, "This is terrific," you
I
know?
love that scene. Thank you.
Yeah,
It makes me like, ooh, it's like my romance writer in me. And then there's like fireflies dancing in the southern night. And I'm like,
yeah.
I feel like a romance writer right now.
Yeah, she's sitting on the step and he's, like, leaned up against the rail. Yeah, I mean, it's, like, seared in my brain because it's such a sweet scene.
I am so obsessed with like little inside jokes, even with the reader, but like between the characters or
Oh,
like callbacks. Like I do it a ton in my historical fiction. I don't do it as much in my thrillers, but they have like this thing where they're like, okay, okay. And then like that gets to go through the whole thing. And then you can have it change meaning throughout. And like that's why like as a writer, that's like one of my favorite things to do.
well,
It's so,
keep
so
doing it.
small, I know, but yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's so much fun to read. And talking a little bit about sense of community and people that Olive has connected with and it feeling like a small town. At one point, she needs somebody's help. So she texts the person like, "Hey, can you meet me for a drink? I'll buy nothing." And she's like, "It's about information about a serial killer." No reply. It's not me. Then she starts to see the three little dots. And I was like, you even captured that moment. I mean, how many times we've texted somebody and we're like, did they see it? Did they see it? Oh, I see the three little dots and then nothing. But she meets up with him is somebody that she worked with was a therapist and just the dialogue that they have back and forth. It is not a traditional was not a traditional therapist in terms of, well, how did that make you feel? He calls her on things and questions things.
Love him. I was not able to bring him back in the second book because it just didn't work, but I'm like, he's in my back pocket because I love that character. Um, I wanted her, so I needed her to find out some information about like the psychology of the perpetrator. And I was like, who would be kind of cool to bring in this moment? And I was like, oh my God, one of her, because she talks about all the time how she went through like this revolving door of psychologists. She didn't trust any of them, but she trusted this guy because he talked to her like a person. And I was like, okay, he's going to be kind of unprofessional. Like, why would that make sense? And it was like, he realized he was not for, clinical setting. He was like an academic person. So he's like, I got out of that immediately. And then he can kind of be more upfront. And like, that's kind of gives him reason to be upfront. But yeah, I loved writing that scene. I love writing them because I think she needed somebody who wasn't going to be like, so tell me about your feelings. Like, she was 17. Like, she doesn't, like, again, she was like in this flight mode for 10 years. She's not going to be able to be like, yeah, I don't know. It made me feel sad. Like, I don't know. She just is not going to be able to go through like that normal ethical, don't believe me,
Right.
ethical
Yes.
psychological journey that she
Right.
should have gone through. But that's where fiction comes in. She gets to get what she needed instead of what should have been done. And sometimes you can be, as an author, you can do that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. First of all, it only cost her 2 sea breezes. That's his drink of
Yeah.
choice, which is quite fun.
Well, and
But
he shows up. That's another thing. Like, I love writing characters who kind of posture and then their actions kind of counter their like posturing. So he's like posturing tough, but he cares about her. He showed up. Like, even if it took him a while to even it took him a second to respond, and being bribed or whatever, but he showed up for her. And I'm like, he cares about her and like her well-being. And I think it's so much fun to write characters like that rather than just being people who are like show all of the exact emotions they think. It's like, I love that contrast.
without a doubt, and I learned something interesting, and as did Olive, as if she's like a real character.
Yeah.
Real person. I'm like, oh yeah, me and Olive, we learned at the same time. But he talked about, because he's now left the therapeutic setting and he's more designed for research. And he has studied the human brain, and he talks about brain activity when somebody is contemplating revenge.
Mm,
There's a rush in the reward center, just like people who use cocaine or nicotine. And I thought, ooh, fast. And that's just contemplating revenge. That's what our brain does. So that's not
yes.
even the
And it,
following through.
yes. So I was researching revenge heavily for The Lost Book of Bond, which is my second historical fiction. And it's set in post World War II. And so, like, grappling with, I won't get too deep into it, but grappling with like the monstrosity that occurred during World War II and like, how do you move on, and like revenge, and I don't know. So anyways, I did a bunch of research around that, and it stuck with me for my thrillers because they have done a lot of research on revenge, and revenge itself acts like a drug. But also, in the way of drugs, it ruins your life. Like, people get hooked on the idea of revenge and vengeance, and they have found the people who end up being successful are the ones who move on and the ones who can get past the idea of revenge. And that is so hard as a human being to be like, yes, I understand I may never get justice for this thing that was done to me. As good as it feels, imagining it, as good as it would feel to do something to enact it. Yeah. You are better off if you can move away from that. Like, successfully in life, like all of your outcomes, health outcomes, like everything is going to be better if you just don't worry about revenge. But I mean, we do a lot of things that are bad for us, It's like,
Absolutely. It's so amazing talking to you, because this book, I mean, we could talk for another couple hours because there's so many great characters, but there's a married couple, Darla and Kyle. And Kyle
right.
was a former NFL football player and, apparently is very imposing. But after
Yes.
his career ended in the NFL, he went on to write self-help books and how to coach. And there's a point in which he's talking about writing books and how important it is to be able to move forward. So it's funny, like all of the research that you do, and the more I
Yes.
talk to you, I was like, that's Kyle. And then you'll
Yes.
say something else. I'm like, that's Jamal. You'll say something else. I was like, that's Ronnie. So it's this wonderful group of people in your stories and group of characters that create such a great story, first of all, and a plot where you can't stop turning pages. But also makes you think, and lessons that we've all come across. I mean, we may not be crime scene cleaners, but we've all struggled with things similar to what Olive is experiencing. And I just,
That means so much to me because I'm always trying to have conversations with themes and things like that. And sometimes I think my books can read like like just a page turner where you're just trying to solve the mystery. And that is totally a valid way to read books. When I write them, I am thinking exactly how you're talking about, where it's like all of these connections and these conversations and themes that go throughout. And that's not to sound pretentious. That's like the way I like to think. But I'm so glad you brought up Kyle because he's like one of my favorite characters.
he
He's
is.
like such a golden retriever. He's like, I don't know. He's so goofy. Like I just like
Yeah,
he
like
was fun to
fiercely
read.
loyal.
Like he's not
Yeah.
a person, but yeah. He is like, hey, I just found him so fun to write for some reason. I'm so glad you brought him up because he's
There's
such a small character, but
He is, but, like, he has an impact, and it's just one of those great things, the talking to you, and sometimes it's so hard, like, I read a ton, but, like, not everybody has read what I've read because I get to read things early. I'm like, "I can't talk
uh,
to anybody about this. I need to talk to somebody about this." I know, I'll just talk to the writer. We'll talk to Brianna and say, "Hey." But the threads of humanity throughout the book, which, yes, it's a murder mystery, and she ends up being this amateur sleuth and has no, she doesn't care who she talks to. She's not intimidated really by anyone. She'll go and she'll drive, doesn't matter. She sets her own schedule, has such agency, which I
yeah.
absolutely love. And then thinking about the people that are part of her community and just all the other things that are learned from that, it's a fantastic
Thank you.
story. And I'm so glad it's
Thank you.
continuing.
You have identified so many things that I put in there. I really appreciate that.
Not an odd problem. Humor, without a doubt, tends to tends to show up from Olive. She'll say little flippant comments, just like her t-shirts with puns aren't really long, but she'll say things like, "Yeah, well, Logic didn't get invited to this dinner party." And you could just hear that delivery, that banter, and it's kind of like an aside. I mean, things that I would say she says out loud, and I think it's terrific.
It is
So,
so hard writing humor. Like humor writers, I am in awe of like sitcom writers or
uh
anything like that. So in awe because I have all of this time to come up with like a witty rejoinder, right? But
right.
like people who are just like I'm not naturally funny. I am like, I don't know. It is one of those skills. I just look at people and I'm like, you are made the whole room laugh so easily. It is like a crazy skill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like being able to have like months to be able to come up with like something
Yeah.
for her to say.
Quite fun. And can I ask a question since we talked
Yeah.
about Jamal?
Yeah.
His husband is
Mm.
named Malcolm. Is that like Malcolm Jamal Warner? Was that at all going through your brain at
No,
that point?
apparently I'm bad with the names. I literally will just look up baby names a lot of
Well, I just thought it was like, oh, because he went out to save people who were drowning. And so I was like, oh, that's a
No.
nice tip of the cap.
I also feel like I need to start Googling the full names because I'm sure I've done full names of people, real people. Names are the hardest for me. I feel like names coming up with all the names for like so many characters. I just finished book 18. So I'm like, all of my names have been used. I start using hockey guys as like
Good.
names
Yeah.
sometimes.
May I recommend Chris Letang or
Yes.
Sidney Crosby?
There's a Malkin makes it in, Evgeny Malkin, but it has like it's one of the I think it's Malkin, something Malkin makes it in. It's one of my books. I felt and then one of my the boxcar librarian has Sydney, which was
Hmm?
inspired by Mr.
See,
Crosby.
now I know that you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, but I knew we would get along. So names are tough to come up with. How about titles for your books? How is
Um
that? Is that
this this was my title. I have come up with my historical titles. I have come up with one of my thriller titles that they kept. I think it was this one. One or two of the titles they've
I think
kept
this
so
was a
far.
perfect title, Clean Slate.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like the Yeah, I kind of try to look at idioms and stuff like that. Almost none of my books have my titles. It's usually like, editor and marketing kind of come up with something they think is going to work well. I don't really have like a strong attachment to titles, but I do like Clean Slate and I like the cover.
Oh my,
Again, nothing
yeah,
to do with, I didn't have anything to do with it.
it's great. I was going to ask, that was the next question. So like, okay, we
Yeah.
talked about character names and titles and then covers. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
atmospheric.
They came up with, that was like the first try. They had sent me that and I was like, this is one of my favorite covers ever that I've
Yeah.
had.
Yeah, I
It's
noticed the
so
backgrounds in your
colorful.
house, like the borders, all Clean Slate covers. No, I'm kidding.
Just blow it up, put it on the wall. Yeah, so I love the cover. The colors of the cover are so cool. But yeah, that kind of stuff I'm not good at, and I am like, professionals, people are really good at their jobs, think about it all the time, so I'm like, cool with me.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I know we don't judge books by their cover. However, this is certainly a book that will catch somebody's attention. And just the fact that the name is Clean Slate, that's intriguing as
Yeah.
well. So, and then it
And
has
the,
your
like
name on the cover. So there's that too. You got that going for you, which is nice.
the
Yeah.
light also the color fades between clean and slate. Oh, so
Hmm.
good.
Yeah, no, it makes me think of Ronnie. I'll just say that. How about?
It does. Agreed. I think it's Ronnie's place.
I think it's Ronnie's place. So I would love to talk to you more, but I know that you're really busy. So this is
No.
Stories End. Yeah. Yeah. Stories End, final 5 questions. What
Mm,
is your ringtone?
just vibrate. I
Okay.
know. I think in the 90s, it was like whatever Fall Out Boy song I liked at the time,
Yeah.
or the 2000s,
Yeah. Where do you sit in a room? The front or the back?
the front. I am like a teacher's pet.
Do you have a collection of t-shirts with puns, or are you going to start one?
I should start one. I love the like ones they sell at, I don't know if they do anymore, but they used to sell them at like Target. They would just have like logos and slogans on them that made like no sense. I had a bunch of those.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favorites is, because I live in Cleveland, not far from Lake Erie. Mine says Lake It Easy,
Love
right? What is one of your pet peeves?
slow walkers taking up like the whole, like if you don't move out of the way. I guess like being inconsiderate in general in a physical space is kind of my pet peeve. I'm like, do you have to
Walk
stop right
into a
there?
store and stop to look at their phone. I was
Yes,
like, dude, you're step to the
just
side.
step one, half a step, just a half a step. Just be aware of your physical surroundings for
Yeah.
like 30 seconds. Yeah,
Hmm.
but I think that's it.
Yeah. What song is always on your road trip playlist?
I'm a Swiftie. I'm a Taylor Swift girl. So anything Taylor. I'd say probably favorite is, I love Exile. I was just listening to that by Taylor Swift. So
Good.
that's a good one.
Good
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
Thank you to those of you listening. A bigger thank you to Brianna Labuskes, whose new book, Clean Slate, just published. So congratulations again.
Thank you.
If you are looking for a story that introduces a fresh perspective into crimes and mysteries through the eyes of a crime scene cleaner, Clean Slate is the book for you. If you are looking for a story about mistakes, deception, misdirection, and the impact it has on the people who have suffered tragic losses, Clean Slate is the book for you. If you're looking for a story of a serial killer who leaves clues that may connect to past cases, Clean Slate is the book for you. To find out who else I will be in conversation with, go to storytocount.com. This is Story to Count with Jen Jumba.